Good morning. This is Norma Cowie. Once more, welcoming you to my YouTube channel. We're doing some exploration of the tarot based on the philosophy that I discovered slowly and surely over the years. We went through the first 7 of the Higher Arcana last week, but just to recap a little bit, is that in the first 7, basically you become aware that there's an energy. You make a choice to delve into more understanding of that energy. You learn about love, universal love, and how that works. You also, if you don't keep working with that universal love, run into doubt and cynicism a little bit, but mostly doubtfulness and questioning a lot of things and not really beginning to move. So there comes a point where you eventually will take and go under the tutelage of some teacher or a group. This is a very important phase where you have a teacher to help you understand you might say, the meaning of life. And that is actually one of the symbols, because that's what they teach. They teach you about you. You learn about you. You go on your inner journey in order to bring yourself into a place where you're fully aligned. And it's in that alignment that you begin to really understand and know who you are. And then when you come to that place of fully being aware of what you know at this point, that's certainly not the end, then you're ready to let go of the old precepts, the old ways of looking at things, the old way of doing things. And then you're beginning to get ready to step out to take what you know and apply it into the world in a different way. And that brings us to the next 7 symbols. Now, I've called these next 7 symbols, which is 8 to 14, the spiritual journey. This is where you really are tested in a way of what you know and you don't know. It also, as we will see, that you begin to go deeper. So if you have a tarot deck and you're watching this, you can always put that number 8 to 14 in front of you so you can follow me a little closely. This is not really a class. It's more of an understanding of what these wonderful symbols depict. The 78 cards of the tarot is really the unbound book of wisdom. And why it's an unbound book of wisdom is because the pages can be put in all sorts of orders, and therefore you're able to understand what it's saying. And that's why we can read them. They can tell many, many different stories, and that's the wonder of them. But the secret that lies underneath the whole thing that I've always found and sustained me through many, many things in my life is the actual philosophical journey that it talks about. The actual awareness, and that journey never really stops. It's not like A to Z. It's a constant spiral that you're going through, and right when you think, oh goody, I've got it all, you're back at the beginning almost again in a different way, but you go back through this. So it's a never-ending journey while we're here on this wonderful planet of Earth, as we go through and grow through the direction of what you're wanting to do. I don't know why my computer is showing me some crazy thing here, so I haven't even no idea where I'm supposed to reach it. But it's gone away. I just had a big update happen this morning on my computer, so who knows what that's going to do. Anyway, number 8. So in the number 7 is the Chariot. You've come to a level of understanding, and now you're ready to move forward. And so now you move into number 8, strength symbol. The strength symbol is really an interesting element here, because here is where you see the affinity sign, which you saw originally in the Magician. And if you lined them up, you would see that, oh, the symbol that lines up right underneath it also has that infinity sign, showing that there's an awareness of the force and the power that is above you to be able to bring down into your life. And a beautiful woman, and she's a woman, and she's not a girl, she's definitely a woman, and she has also red roses of desire, which we've run into in the Magician. And so it's like, again, her desire, but she has in her hands a lion, and the lion has his tail between his legs. This is very significant because she has subdued the lion. And in subduing the lion, what happens here is that she is able to deal with and work with. And also, if you a little bit into the symbolism, there is a blue little hill in the back. And if you look, it's very similar to what's in the lover's symbol, which separates the male and the female there, but it's now receding into the background. So there's a applying the energy, the force that she's learned about into the life. And in that, then she is able to move into the hermit, where the hermit is really where we begin to go inside. The Hierophant is the teacher from the first 7. This is the inner teacher. This is where you go inside. This is your meditation. This is where if you may talk to your guides, you may just talk to the awareness of all that you are. And so it really, really just works, excuse me, about how you go inside. And so you begin to listen. And the symbolism is like that. It's like on top of a mountain where it's all snowy. He's looking down. He has a lantern. I always think of a saying my teacher said, which is, where I am, you too can be. In other words, here we are on top of the mountain, and we kind of look down and go, oh, this is where we're going. Now, there is that time period of learning. Now, when we've come to a learning phase, like in the Hierophant, and we're beginning to feel pretty good about it, we run into the Wheel of Fortune. There is a bit, I was going to say there's a saying, it's not really a saying, but there's a belief out there about how we create our reality. Excuse me. And the Wheel of Fortune, it really comes in to show that no matter what we think and what we're doing, we're not necessarily going to know everything or be in command of everything except ourselves. Now, one of the things I like about the Wheel of Fortune when I'm reading, if I'm reading for people, is I like to see how fast it moves. Sometimes it's stagnant. Now, it does mean action. It does mean movement. And there are the 4 fixed signs in the corner of this symbol with books. So it's a learning time. And it's a learning of what it is, ever it is you're going to be learning. Now, there's also some symbols around the wheel. We also have words and we have hieroglyphics, meaning there's Torah, but Yod-He-Vah-He, which is meaning God. We get Jehovah God. So what happens when this wheel comes along? What happens when you need action? You cannot be stagnant. And if you remember from last week, I was talking about how none of the symbols actually had movement in them. This one does. This one says, hey, you can't stay stationary in what you know. This is where life comes along and says, okay, we're going to have movement. Now, I always feel, because it is a wheel, that it is the hub of the wheel that is very, very important. The hub of the wheel is what you need to be. If you're working with your movement, it makes it easier. But very often what happens, we have the outside, and boy, in the last few months, we've had that happen when the outside comes in and we have to deal with that. We have to cope with that. And so it's like, how do we handle the changes? How do we handle the change? If you're dictating the change, like, oh, I'm going to move, I'm going to start a new job, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have kids, whatever, you're in a way prepared for that. But life has a way of coming in now. And I always look at it this way. I always look to see, where is the person? Is the person on the hub of the wheel? Or is the person on the outside of the wheel? This is what makes it very, very, very interesting. It's because if you're on the outside, it can get very, very chaotic. It can be spinning too fast. Sometimes I look at that Wheel of Fortune for people and it is going spinning. And it's like, how do you get off that? How do you stop that? Because until you get some semblance of command in your life, you'll notice I didn't say control, I said command. Until you get some command in your life, it's like You're just reacting to everything. And so this learning that's going on here is applying all that you have learned, all that you have come to understand, all that you understand how it's supposed to be, how you work, how you operate, so that you can command to where you want to go. Now, life in itself, what it does then is brings us into this number 11, the justice symbol, which always I find it's like, it took me a long time to understand this symbol a lot. It's very like its predecessor number 2, which is choice, as far as I'm concerned. But it has the pillars, it has the curtain behind. But this is about justice. But here, justice isn't blind. This is a lot about the law of cause and effect. What you put out, you get back. That's kind of an understating law that a lot of people talk about, a lot of people wonder about, a lot of people are thinking about. But the key mostly here is another decision point, because it is part, an 11 is just a higher value of 2. And when I began to discover that this is where you commit, if you're on your spiritual journey, if you're wanting to philosophically understand how this life works, you come to a point, and this is it, where you commit to your journey. And so I often explain it like this way. If I'm going, let me just back up for a minute. If I'm going to go on a journey, unless I've decided to go by an airplane, by air, I have to buy an air. I have to choose, first of all, make a decision, which is number 2, that I'm going to go on this journey. But it's not until I get my air ticket that I'm committed to that journey, and that's the justice. That's the number 11. That is the commitment to the journey. And the same thing applies to your spiritual journey. Things get a little bit tough on that wheel of fortune. It's not as clear cut. It's not as easy, perhaps. So now you're going to have to commit to go deeper, yes, I am really committed to this. There's nothing much you can see behind that curtain. We could see the river of life behind High Priestess, but we can't here. So what are we going to do? And so it's about commitment. What level of commitment are you in relation to your journey, into relation to your life, into relation to where you want to go? And then the first thing you come to do when you kind of, okay, is the hanged man, where the man is hanging upside down, but he's got a lovely, what they call a nimbus around his head. Is very golden, very light. His arms and his legs form a cross. He's on a cross, hanging from one ankle. And to me, this came as where we accept things as they are. Acceptance is not easy for most of us. We always want it the way we want it. And yet life very often is just plain acceptance. How many times do I have clients and I'm saying, look, that to me, this is what is a law of learning, is a learning acceptance. Because you cannot make a decision to change your life or work with your life until you've accepted 100% where you are. If you're hanging upside down and you come to that peaceful place inside yourself, which you've learned in the Hermit, then you can make a decision. You've made the decision, and now you accept, this is where I am. But I found when I accept 100%, that's the big key, 100%. I'm free to make a decision. I'm free to make some movement. And that's when you come into the next symbol, which is the death symbol, which is the rebirth out of the old into the new. Now, if we take the number 13, which is the death symbol, and look at its counterpart, because that comes to a 4, is the emperor, where the emperor is not moving. Where here we've got a skeleton with the armor on a beautiful white horse, but there's been a battle. There's a man lying dead in front. There's obviously a king, his crown's gone. There's a priest here, there's a maiden, there's a child, there's all people here kind of, the maiden's looking away, doesn't want to see the death and destruction that's gone on. When we have lived a life, we have had some things go on. If you have a nice, simple, easy life, that would be wonderful. But the majority of us have things that really test our value, test what we really believe, test a sense of beingness. And then when, as I say, when we've accepted 100% where we are, we can move into this transition time. It doesn't mean that it happens right away. As again, another journey. That's what I love about the death symbol. The death symbol represents that element of moving ahead up into the sun that lives between the two towers, which shows up again in the next 7. But it's, to me, it's the transformation from one element to another. And that takes us to the temperance, where we have everything at our disposal. We're able to utilize, somebody doesn't have their mute on, sorry. Please put your mute on. And so moving us into the direction of where we're heading and where we're going. One thing I love about the temperance is, again, if you look at the chest, you have the same square that the chariot had, but now it has a triangle. And this is showing a next level of awareness and growth. He is not at the end because the sun is still in the background. The trail leads to their beautiful pool of water in front of him, of which he stands 1 foot on the water, 1 foot on the ground. There's quite a bit of symbolism in this. He's crowned with the sun, where the chariot was crowned by the star. Now, why I began to think of this as, even though I see that the number 2 symbol around the decisions that we make is really important, and can be classified as what I call a law. A law is that which exists all the time. The Wheel of Fortune is the law of action, change, movement. The justice symbol is the law of cause and effect. We need to become responsible for our actions. We need to become responsible for our thinking. We need to become responsible for how we are. And it is through the acceptance of that, which is number 12, which is, again, the higher order of number 3, which is the Empress, is that we need to accept that. We need to accept where we're at. We need to accept their love. We need to accept the beingness, so that we can complete this last 2 steps to come to be as the temperance, continuing working in the direction of where we want to go. So next Wednesday, I'm going to go through the next 7 plus the full, although the full may come into its own, have its own day. We will see. But I want you to realize that your life is a journey. Your life is a journey of step by step, working, creating, allowing, bringing a sense of a direction of where you are at and where you're heading and where you're going. For me, it has been a guide stone philosophically for me for many, many years. And I have gone to it often to say, okay, what is really happening here? Because I don't know about you, but I had a tendency of thinking, well, I know how this works. And so therefore, if I go on my own and run into the Wheel of Fortune or some symbols that will come later next week, and then I go, oh, well, hang on a minute. How come this is not working the way I really wanted to work? So I want you to have a good week. I want you to know that I appreciate you watching. I appreciate comments, because we get some sometimes, and I appreciate that. And if you've subscribed, I appreciate that too, immensely. And if you want to contact me, you can through my website, www.normacowie.com. I trust you'll have a good week and enjoy every moment of it. I want to thank you very much for being here. Bye now.